Love was our promise until the day you broke it. Now, every tear tells a story. The story of us ending. David was 35, a banker in Lagos, well-groomed with his low-cut hair, always neat and precise. His life was measured in schedules, deadlines, and phone calls. To outsiders, he was successful. To Grace, his wife, he was slipping further away. Grace was a 32-year-old teacher. She wore her hair in tidy braids tied into a bun, her eyes soft but tired. For 5 years, she had held their marriage together with quiet patience, believing love could survive anything. But patience, too, has its limits. Every evening she laid the table. 2 plates of steaming food. But more often than not, only 1 plate was eaten. She would sit alone, watching the clock, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. Sometimes he came after midnight. Sometimes he never came at all. One night, as thunder rolled over Lagos and rain slapped against their window, Grace sat with her chin in her palm. The lights flickered. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm in her heart. She whispered to herself, "Love shouldn't feel this lonely." When David finally returned, soaked from the rain, briefcase in hand, his kiss on her cheek was rushed, his eyes already on his laptop bag. Grace stared at him, tears stinging her eyes, wondering when her husband had become a stranger. That weekend, they traveled to David's village for his cousin's wedding. The village streets were alive with the rhythm of drums, the laughter of children, the aroma of palm wine and roasted yam. Grace forced a smile, greeting relatives warmly, but deep inside, she was hurting. During the wedding feast, she sat quietly, staring at couples dancing together, while David spoke with uncles and cousins, barely noticing her. When he finally walked over, he leaned close and whispered, "After this, I'll make more time for us, Grace. I swear." Grace smiled faintly, searching his eyes for truth. She wanted to believe. She wanted to believe that somewhere beneath the banker's cold distance was still the man who once held her hand under the stars. But in her heart, a quiet voice asked, "Will things really change?" Weeks turned into months. David's promise faded like smoke. His calls grew fewer, his nights grew longer, and Grace's loneliness became a shadow that followed her everywhere. At the village school where she taught, she often crossed paths with Michael, David's childhood friend. Michael was warm, approachable, with neatly tied dreadlocks that gave him a calm, artistic look. Unlike David, he noticed when she looked sad. He asked when she was quiet. He listened when she spoke. At first, it was harmless. Conversations about the children at school, about the weather, about village life. But as loneliness pressed harder, Grace began to open her heart to him. One late afternoon, as the sun painted the sky orange, Grace sat on the bench outside her classroom, her eyes wet with unspoken pain. Michael approached slowly. "Grace, you've been quiet these days. What's troubling you?" She hesitated, then broke. Her voice cracked. "I feel invisible, Michael. My husband, he doesn't even see me anymore. I try, but it's like I don't exist." Michael sighed deeply. his voice soft. Grace, you deserve to be seen. You deserve to be loved the way you need. Don't let his absence make you doubt your worth. Her tears fell freely, and Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. The lantern light flickered between them as evening turned to night, and in that single moment, what should have been comfort became something else, something dangerous. Days passed, and their bond deepened. What started as innocent companionship became secret meetings, whispered conversations, shared moments of laughter that were no longer pure. Grace hated herself for it, but she was drowning in loneliness, and Michael was her lifeline. But secrets, no matter how carefully hidden, have a way of coming to light. One evening, David returned from Lagos unannounced. Grace was in the kitchen, her phone buzzing on the counter. David glanced at the screen. A message. Michael's name. Words of affection. The world spun. His hands shook. His chest tightened, as though a knife had been driven into it. Grace, his voice broke, filled with pain. How could you? Grace froze, her braids falling across her face as tears streamed down. I was lonely, David. You left me alone for so long. I needed you, but you were never there. The silence between them was heavier than thunder. Trust had shattered. Their marriage, once their pride, now lay broken at their feet. David left the village and returned to Lagos. Alone, his heart, once so sure of love, now felt like an empty shell. He buried himself in work, chasing numbers, meetings, and deadlines, but no amount of success filled the hollow ache inside. Grace stayed in the village, carrying the weight of guilt. Every morning she walked to school, her braids neatly tied, but her eyes empty. Neighbors whispered. Children stared. She felt the shame cling to her like a shadow. Michael, too, lived in regret. What had felt like love was now nothing more than chains of guilt. Months passed. The seasons changed. But the pain remained. One Sunday, David sat alone in the back pew of a city church. The choir's voices rose, gentle and pure, singing hymns of mercy. He bowed his head and whispered, Lord, give me strength. Help me heal. Help me forgive. Meanwhile, in the village, Grace sat at her small wooden desk, pen in hand. With trembling fingers, she wrote a letter. David, I do not ask you to come back. I do not ask you to forget. I only beg for your forgiveness, not for us to be together again, but so that I can breathe again. My mistake has haunted me every day. Please, let me find peace. When David received the letter, he read it under the soft glow of his desk lamp. Each word cut deep, but beneath the pain, he felt something stirring, not love, not reconciliation, but release. Tears welled in his eyes as he whispered, I forgive you, Grace, not to return, but to set us free. From that moment, a weight lifted. Grace, too, felt the chains break when David's message reached her. I forgive you. In the end, love is not just about passion or promises. It is about honesty, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Sometimes, forgiveness doesn't mean holding on. Sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to let go.